What up, though, everybody? Welcome to the Player Exchange. I know we had a little hiatus. We was gone for a little while, but we back. You know what I mean? I'm Steph. My co-host, Big Merle. What's going on, baby? How you doing?
I'm all right, man. How you been, man?
Man, I can't complain, man. Trying to stay warm out here in this December Michigan weather. You know what I'm saying?
Cold in the D.
It's cold. It's so cold in the D. But you know what's hot is these players, you feel me? And all the talent coming up out of Detroit, Metro Detroit, the whole state, the dirty glove, whatever you like to call it. But welcome to the Player Exchange, man. We've been trying to put this interview together for a while now. This is a big one for us because this is a friend of the program, friend of Athlazon, friend of Player Exchange, and for No Blood, No Foul. He's a big figure out there in the sports world. Big figure to me because he's been my homeboy since I probably was in, grade school, something like that. So, without further ado, I'm going to let him introduce himself. My man Jordan Rassam. What's up, baby?
Hey, what's up, guys? Big fan of the show. Thanks for having me on. I've been wanting to get on for a while. You guys, I watch your content a lot. Put out great content. Our company's Fifth Quarter Sports Management. It's a full-service sports agency, and thrilled to be here, chop it up with you guys.
For sure. So let's back it up a little bit, though, man.
Talk to me.
You used to play, so So tell the people where you started at, man. What position you played, all that.
Yeah, I played my high school ball at Birmingham Groves. So I had a lot of fierce battles with Steph's dad at Lathrop down the road. Well, they knocked us out of the playoffs my senior year. Heartbreaker. From there, I went to play at a Division II school in Indiana, St. Joseph's College. I was a defensive tackle there, 4-year starter, have won a lot of awards and did a lot of good, had a good career, had fun, did all that. It was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. Obviously, like going away, being on your own. It's like almost a coming of age, being 18 from here, from Metro Detroit. It was like culture shock to me a little bit going over there in the middle of the cornfields in Indiana, but it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I got a degree because of it. I maybe would have never went to college and got a degree if it wasn't for football. I'm a big proponent of playing in college, but we get so enamored with the big Division I Power 4 guys. They don't I want everybody to understand that, like, Division II football, NAIA football, Division III football, FCS football, it's college football. Bottom line, if now you're getting money as well a lot of times when you're going places, but you're getting an education and to play ball, and with that, just my own story is what you can parlay that into is crazy, because if not for football, I don't go to college. I go into other activities with a lot of my other friends, and I don't get a degree. Well, flash forward a few years, when I was done playing, I was back here out in the real world, and in the cellular phone business, banging away. I decided I wanted to go back to get a graduate degree. I wanted to go to law school. Well, if I never played ball and never had the degree, I could never go back to law school and start my career, which eventually propelled my life forward to where we are today. So that's where I came. I was a defensive lineman, I told you, defensive end in college. When I went off, I was probably 25, 26 when I started law school. Went to U of D Mercy. I was here, I was working and going to law school. It was really a quite humbling experience in my life, because I had owned my own business before I went back to school. And you go from, having some money in your pocket, being able to do what you want to do, travel, to you're back to being a student and grinding away, So it was a humbling experience, probably needed it in my life. But like everything, like the way I believe, I'm a long-term thinker, and I feel you take 1 or 2 steps back, take 5 steps forward, right? So went through, graduated. When I graduated law school and came out to be a lawyer, it was the middle of the recession, 2012. So a lot of firms were not hiring younger attorneys or attorneys right out of law school. So it was my God's plan for me to just go out on my own and start my own practice, which I did. And I took anything that came in the door, because I was trying to eat. I was engaged at the time. My wife wanted to get married, so you got to, when you're on your own, you eat what you kill. Right. So I did a ton of criminal defense work when I was starting out, and I made my bones as that. I was running through the courts left and right, Better Call Saul, like the show, running like that, just doing what you can do, right? Learning, trying to make a living, and you're learning at the time. But it was probably another great experience for me into like what I'm doing today, because when you talk about representation, I don't feel like there's no greater pressure than representing someone when their life is at stake, when their freedom's at stake, right? Money is very important and business is important, but when you develop that skill set, I think that serves me well in everything else I do.
Yeah, so what started the sports agency?
So I had my practice going for the last 12 and a half years. 2 years ago, I think it was 2022, I had almost on a whim. I always wanted to, be in the agent space or the sports space, just because of my different acumen, my football acumen, my business background, and my law background, right? So it's the perfect mesh of all three. So I had a young attorney in my office that just said, "Hey, I'm going to take the agent exam for the NFLPA." So I said, "I'm going to take it with you." And I took it and I passed it, and I said, "All right, nothing happens by accident. There's a reason you passed it. Let's start at this," right? It was October of 2022. And if you know anything about the recruiting cycle for the draft, by that time, October, for the draft coming up, generally anybody that's going to get drafted has already probably made their decision as to their agent, or they have a good idea. People have been after them for a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe longer for a lot of guys. So when I was coming out, I said, let me just get some experience, right? I just want to, more than anything, I need to educate myself. I'm doing something new. Education, I would pay for it, so let me do it this way. Hands-on education is better than anything. So we ended up representing a few guys. They weren't maybe free agent level guys, all great kids, all great players in their own right. But as far as the NFL stuff goes, it's a ruthless business. And we got all three of them got into rookie mini camps, but didn't make it in. And, their football careers are pretty much, all of them really didn't pursue it further. But for me, I got a lot of education from it. I learned the process. I learned what needs to be done, what level of commitment. The guys that you're going to recruit, it's a lot of players are good. There's a lot of guys that are not in the NFL that you would be like, man, he can play. He can play at that level, and he can. But there's other things that go into it, right? There's a lot of factors because the spots are limited, right? Last year was our first full year. We had two guys get picked up by the Jets. They made it through training camp, and then they got cut. They're both going to be UFL guys now. They're going to play in the UFL for this season and go on to and try to make it back to the NFL. Both of them have very good chances to make it back next year. And now we're in it's our second full year at in this business, running around. And this is just from doing the NFL representation side, right? And we have two guys. We have one guy signed to us this year, Malik Carr, friend of the program, friend of Athlazon.
Yes.
shout
And
out to Malik.
And we have another young man. He's still playing in a bowl game, but he's committed to us, and we'll be able to announce that afterwards. And then we have a couple other guys that we're speaking to that, again, are still playing, and we'll see how that all shakes out, right? Whether they declare or not.
So, from the agent side, we all players or no players that was in the league, but from the agent side, when you say a player has the talent at the college level, but it's things that's missing for the NFL level, what are some of them things you can give to the players that they need to work on so that?
Bro, that's a great question, man. And it's again, we're talking fine margins, right? The difference between one guy that makes it and becomes 10-year pro and a guy that just doesn't get the chance, it's this much, right? And that's what you got to understand when we just start this conversation, that the margins are very small, right? And if everybody's talented at the P4 level, let's say, right? At the Division I level, everybody's got talent. If you're at that level, then you got some kind of measurable, some kind of talent to get there for the most part, right? When you go to the next level, to the NFL, everybody's talented. Everybody there has the measurables. So now what's the difference? Your work ethic. How much, the first question any scout asks when they interview a kid, you know what the first question is? Do you love football, right? Because they want to know that football is, whether really, we all know there's life and there's other things than just football. Like, I'm a family man. There's things more important, right? But these teams, again, I say it's a ruthless business. They're a business, and they want to know if I'm investing millions of dollars in you, football is your number one priority. You love the game. Even when you get paid, you're gonna keep playing. You're gonna be even more motivated when you get paid, right? So things like that. Do you love football? What kind of work ethic? Like, if you're not a worker, no matter how talented you are, if you don't put the work in, eventually it will catch up to you, right? Like they say, hard work beats talent only when talent don't work hard.
Right.
You understand? Yeah. So like, and at that level, you have guys that are uber talented, supremely talented, and they're working like they haven't eaten, right? They're hungry. And that's another aspect. When you start going to the NFL, a lot of these guys are grown men playing in the league with families. They're feeding their families. And, a younger guy may come in and he might just think like, in high school and college, I just ran over everybody. Well, this is when they say grown man strength, and there's intangibles for a man that's got to feed a family. You understand? Yeah. That, like, you got to come ready to kill. And I use those terms, and I don't mean them, like, literally, obviously, but, like, you got to be ruthless with it. You hear me say that term a lot because that's what I've learned. It's a ruthless business, and, yeah, you can have friends and this and that and all that, but they're all competition. It's a zero-sum game. For you to move up a lot of times, someone else got to move down. It just is the nature of the business.
Being said, that's on the NFL level, like, leaving college or whatnot. But now, because of NIL and things of that nature and, like, recruitment, like, we're seeing Little League kids get NIL deals and, in different states. States vary from state to state. But for everybody, like, there's a lot of misinformation about NIL. So, like, let's just start there. Like, what is NIL? Where's the money come from? How is it divvied up? Like, the real thing. Because, for instance, like they said, like, you hear a lot of stories about kids, like a school offer a kid $5 million or whatever out of collective NIL, but they don't actually get the $5 million. Like, so, like, how does this actually work?
So, again, let's start the conversation with the premise that we are in the Wild West time still of NIL, right? It's still so new, and especially just starting out, you saw so many deals. Well, NIL, first and foremost, name, image, and likeness, right? It basically says a student athlete can profit off of their own image, their name, endorsement deals, things of this nature. Well, schools initially got creative and, through collectives or what we know them as, what back in the day we used to say a booster club, right?
Right.
That's what a collective is. It's a group of alumni, a business owners. They start a group, and the collective is making the deal. No doubt the money is being directed from the coach of the football team, right? The football team is hands-on. This guy gets this guy gets this guy gets this, right? This is the early stages, right? This is how it was going. And a lot of these deals were handshake agreements. A lot of these kids, it was so new, they were just trusting these older businessmen, people, boosters. I've dealt with a few of them myself for some of my players. And, they're not the most upstanding people, right, for the most part, a lot of times. So they got into these agreements, and it was, maybe a handshake agreement. Maybe like the kid from UNLV. You're going to get $100,000 to come here on a handshake. Well, when you get there and they already got you there and you're playing, and they say, oh, well, we ain't got the money right now. Well, sue us. Well, where's the contract, right? Now, there's oral agreements, and, a good attorney is going to find all those text messages, and I hope there's some text messages, which we did at a certain P4 school, which will remain nameless, with their collective, is they tried to, again, another collective tried to not pay one of the players we represent the money he was owed. It was a significant sum. And the gentleman that I dealt with that was running the collective said, oh, well, I don't have a contract with him. Well, we showed all the text messages back and forth and the money they did send to him and the answers. And you had a contract in writing, essentially, right? And we got our guy paid, right? But if the young man does or young woman doesn't have an attorney to help them with it, they don't know what to do. They don't know what the process is like, right? And a lot of these collectives, which are savvy business people, I would say, are taking advantage of that. That's changing now, right? With with the House settlement, which is the big landmark NCAA student athlete case, where they're gonna share in profit sharing, and there's a lot of many other things to dive into with that settlement, right?
Yeah, it's got to be, because I was just thinking about it, like going forward, even if I was a school, like if I'm going to give you $5, $6, $7 million, and because conversely, a lot of kids are just running off with the bag, going hitting licks at every school. Like I'm a free agent every year. Like I don't have a contract with you. You gave me $3 million this year. I bought out. I'm gonna go hit the market again, see if I can get $4 million this time from another school, or you got to pay me more.
It's not even year to year. How many different portal windows are there throughout the year?
Yeah. So how's that work? Like, is there like a trade deadline?
So I'm gonna tell you, there's portal windows, right? You got your December window, which we're in right now. It lasts about, I want to say, it started the 9th, goes to the 28th, so 19 days. You have your spring window, which is the 16th through the 25th, and I believe there's a summer window as well, if I'm not mistaken. I got to double. It's so new that it's kind of wild, but essentially in all those windows, you can jump. I know a kid that played somewhere for 4 years, had another year, went to somewhere in the spring, and by the summer, he was somewhere else.
But how does that work, man? Like trying to get an NIL deal for him or get something from a collective at a new school in such a short time with kids leaving right after spring ball. Like, how does that work?
It's crazy. That was a wild situation. I will tell you that all the jumping around, there is a negative effect, because when you start talking to scouts and they see a guy transfer 4 or 5 times, they're investigators. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go to 4 or 5 places and ask, hey, what was this guy like? What happened? What was the situation with it, right? So always remember, when you're leaving a place, there's going to be someone to speak about you. Sometimes you can't control that, You know how this business is, right? But for the most part, you want him to speak generally like he was a good kid, because they're asking, they're investigating. Now, what I'm seeing, I just looked at a contract for a guy we work with, and they're getting smart with how they're tying the payments, right? So looking at his contract, the payments that he's supposed to get throughout the year are every month, right? Well, the majority of the bulk payments are paid out when? What is the date, if you want to guess?
After the portal window.
April 30th. When does the portal window close? Right. April 26th.
Smart.
It's
business, though.
Business.
It's business. It go both ways.
You got to learn. They learned. They got burned. These collectives, they got burned. They front-loaded a kid with money, and the kid was like, oh, yeah, I'm good, right? But it goes both ways, because kids are only doing that because of the system that was in place for many years, and even what a lot of people don't realize is they say, oh, well, they're getting a 4-year scholarship. No, they're not. Their scholarship is year to year, right? And every time a student athlete wants to leave, they're going to harp on, oh, well, they committed to him. And well, no, they're not really committed to him, because every year they can tell him, you know what, you got to leave. You don't have a scholarship anymore.
Yeah, it's a 1-year renewable scholarship.
Yeah? So like it works both ways. So don't get mad when the kid wants to jump around every year, right? When they want to keep their options open, if the team is keeping their options open, right? It's a double-edged sword, right? You're always going to deal with that. There's, like we were kind of talking before we were on about, and again, player representative. So I'm all about players getting paid, right? But with the whole NIL movement now, there are some groups of people who are going to suffer, right? That you don't really hear, the marginalized, right? That you don't really hear about. And usually, those are going to be the children. Where is that happening? Well, because of NIL and this crazy portal, it's a business. These coaches, they got to go get talent. They got to win today. They don't have 4 or 5 years anymore. They have 1-2 years to win. So they want to go get players ready-made, meaning they're going to go into the portal. So let's just use a round number. Let's say they had 10 scholarships back when we were playing, or even 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? You had 10 scholarships. You're going to use them for high school players, right? Maybe 1 or 2 of those scholarships are going to a high school kid now, right? And the rest of them are going to portal guys. So kids in high school, there's not as many scholarships to go around, right? So what happens? Everybody gets pushed down a little bit. If you were maybe like a fringe Power 4 guy, like maybe at a smaller level Power 4, like a big conference but a small level school, right? You might now be a MAC guy or a G5 guy, right? And if you were a G5 guy back when we were playing, Steph, I think you might be a D2 guy now, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But that's just the nature of the business now, right? And even you're starting to see, I saw one college, Division II program, they're shuttering their doors, their football program, because they are not they don't have a business model where they're going to pay. It's Division II football. They're not going to pay players. Now, there's some other big Division II schools that are. They can't compete. So they said, we'll just shut our football program. And I think that's going to happen more and more. You're going to see a lot of smaller schools shut their programs down.
Because not a new law passed, right? So JUCO, the 2-year JUCO, does not affect your 4 or 5 years.
That's another.
That's huge.
That's another whole can of worms. Can of worms. It's good, but I've seen Steve Sarkisian said you're going to have guys 28, 29 years old playing college football. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just another pro league at this point. But see, the problem is I was thinking like, okay, we're going to get past that because there was a lot of COVID year players, and that was I think this year was the last year for that, right? So like the tight end in Miami is like a 9th year player, so we're not going to get that anymore, right? But then now with the JUCO being 2 years,
seven, maybe 8 years playing in college, 2 years JUCO, 5 years if they get a red shirt, 5 years, and then maybe if they get injured, med red. It's
gonna be a whole lot of Chris Winkies.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
a whole lot of that going on, man. But so in Michigan, man, they haven't passed the NIL deal yet for the high school players. Man, what do you think about that, and why hasn't passed?
So again, legislation doesn't move fast, right? Especially this kind of legislation. There's a lot of things out there that the lawmakers are going to deem as more important than the young kids getting paid, which that's how they look at it, right? So they put everything else in front of it. So it passed through the House, right? Now it's got to pass through the Senate, the Michigan Senate, and then the governor has to sign it into law, which I don't anticipate the governor, if it does pass the Senate, not signing it into law. It's just how long does it take to pass through the Senate? When do they bring it up to vote on it and all that, the good stuff that goes into passing a law, right? So again, it's slow moving. I don't see it happening I'm hoping sometime next year, right? But, I'm not going to hold my breath, right? But they need to jump on it, right? There's a deeper issue at play, right? You're starting to see, because of it, some of our best talent leaving the state and going to play in other states.
Right.
And, you don't want that.
Especially right now when we're like hot as fish grease. Like Detroit and Metro Detroit, Michigan, period, on all levels, restaurants, rappers, ball players. Like, it's hot. So, while we got the spotlight on us, we need to capitalize on it. These people are just, dragging their feet with it. And like you said, these kids is leaving. We can house all that talent right here.
Should never let one kid get out of the state.
It's hurting the state, man.
It hurts the state. Listen, the state of Michigan, and especially Metro Detroit, we have a great state of Michigan, but Metro Detroit, so much talent comes out of here, and like you said, all walks of life. If you're out there, I don't care what the industry is, you're talking, someone from Detroit is hustling.
Yeah.
That's the truth, right? So you want to make us as strong as possible. When you have one of the best basketball players, I'm guessing in the
country,
the young man from Cass Tech that's down there, you don't want to let him get away to a school. I know IMG is a big private academy, but he can do it over here in Cass Tech. And if, the law had passed, I'm sure there would be people putting things together to keep him here.
Right. So how does it work, though? How does NIL work in high school opposed to college? How would it work in high school?
It's essentially the same guys that they used in college. It was, you're getting paid. Again, we got sidetracked, but going back to that is, the collective the football program would say, let's just use round numbers. I'm not going to use the big numbers. $100,000. Coach says, this kid, we're going to give him $100,000. No problem. The collective, the business owners, they're going to put together different installations for him. Autograph signing here, appearance here, do a little commercial here for this company. We're going to bring in, you saw at Michigan, Wolverine boots, come in, do something with them, and this is how they're getting or earning their money, so to speak, right? It's not. It's basically pay for play. They're getting paid for what kind of player they are, right? Not for their name, image, likeness, because if you were to just go shop most of the players, other than your Shedeur Sanders, your high-profile guys, to national brands or even local brands, they just don't move the needle as much, right? A regular guy. For a business to say, yeah, we're going to invest $100,000, $200,000 to this guy, right? That happens when the collective is putting the money up for these local businesses, right? But essentially, it's pay for play. They're getting paid for for the most part, your ex-player, this is what you're making. Those lines are disappearing now, and because of that settlement, schools are going to be. It's already happened in some states, and essentially, schools are going to be able to contract with the kids now. So now, it means a lot more when you're promised $1.5 million, because you have an entity that is collectible, the university, the school, right? They're a collectible entity. It's not a shadowy company that doesn't exist that you can get a judgment against them for whatever amount you want. You can't collect it, right? The school, there's a lot more credibility when the school is contracting with the kid directly, right? A lot less shadowy things going on.
It's crazy because as I think about it, like, life is cyclical, right? It just goes in circles. Things reappear 20, 30 years down the line. In high school, when NIL becomes passes or whatnot, we're going back to like Catholic schools, going back to being dominant and stuff like that. Because it's going to be the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. You know what I mean? It's has and have nots again. Because I got to think Country Day, Brother Rice, whoever else, St. Mary's can put together a collective. It's going to be so powerful. It's going to be like, let me just get all the Falcons and family players.
They're going to follow the model unless, obviously you want to see the protections in place and all that good stuff. But you'll see it. There's always a workaround. That's what these collectives do. This is what this industry is, right? Mm-hmm. There's a workaround, and they'll find ways to provide installations for kids to show up, come to this business, and show up here and get an appearance fee, right? So there will be ways, and like you said, the haves and have-nots, and that's another. With yes, we want the kids to get paid, but also we don't want. There's going to be a marginalized group with that, right?
Right.
I can see some of the schools not really being able to compete, and the kids are going to say, "No, we're going to go."
We're already seeing PSLs damn near non-existent now. You know what I mean? But that's the mass exodus of Detroit because of the recession, trickle-down effect to that now. It's just like Purchase got 400 kids, stuff like that. It's crazy. These schools used to have like 3,000-4,000 kids in the school. You know what I mean?
Powerhouse school.
But how do you, in you being representing kids and being an agent, like how do you protect these kids against all this stuff? Or like where's your role in all of this with these kids in high school anyway?
Well, obviously Michigan hasn't passed the high school yet, so while we don't work with anyone doing NIL deals, obviously in Michigan in high school, we do work with families as consulting, as a lawyer. You got to remember, before anything, I'm a lawyer, right? So that's the number one protection. When they bring, and I can't tell you how many NIL contracts, deals have been put in front of me from collectives and from bigger brands, Chick-fil-A's of the world, and the bigger brands, where you just look through it and a lot of people will just say, yeah, sign it. Here, I've asked all my players ready to sign it. And I'm like, hold on. There's a lot of things we need to put in place here to protect you that you might not understand, right? That this is how I made a living throughout my whole life, pretty much. I understand what they're saying here and how you want to define certain things. So obviously in the contracts, and being a lawyer that's dealt with contracts my whole career, that's a big benefit. And then it just, one thing about my company and our team is it's a family vibe, right? Every one of the players we work with, if you ask them, they know my wife, my children. They're close with all of them. We really are a family, and we bring the players and their families that we work with in, and we're very holistic. It's not about just what you can do on the field. My goal with all our players is how can I impact their life off the field? I'm always looking to provide that value. I always say it, anybody that comes in this office, anybody that works with us, the number one thing I preach to them when they sit down with me is we obsess over providing value, right? Always look to provide value. I'm in the service business. As a lawyer, as an agent, whatever it may be, a lot of people are in this same business. So the only thing that's going to differentiate me is the level of service I provide and the value I provide. With a lot of these players, man, they're so good. There's not much an agent is going to do, like especially going into the draft, for them on the field, right? They're going to earn that. They've put themselves in the position. I see it far too often as a sales pitch. Being out here, you see other sales pitches to these kids, and it's the agent said they're going to get me drafted here. The agent said they're going to get me here, and that's not true. I'm going to be honest with you. guy that's at a certain, if you're on the radar, they know who you are. You put yourself in that position. The player, his family, you're the ones that got yourself in that position. As the agent, my job is to provide you the resources to go do what you have to do to get to the next level, right? That's what we do. And then on top of it, I need to be worried about how am I going to help you in your life as a man, as a son, as a brother, as a friend, as a husband, father eventually, right? I care about our guys off the field, right? How am I going to help them in their lives level up? And I'm not just talking with money. I'm talking about sitting in the right rooms with the right people. So when it's always when I sit with a family, I say my number one thing that I want you to be able to say to yourself, the question I want you to be able to ask yourself when you're done playing football is, what do I want to do next? Not what do I have to do next? And that comes from setting you up and putting you in the right situation with the right people. Just using, I say it all the time, is my network is my most valuable commodity asset that I have. I know Steph, 30 years. He introduced me to Vince. Vince introduced me to a bunch of people that got me into Samaj Morgan and Will Johnson's father, I remember. They introduced me to Coach Blackwell and Sound Mind, Sound Body, and we've been off ever since. And it stems from a 30-year relationship. I've known him 30 years, and he said, I got to introduce you to Vince.
It ain't what you know, it's who you know.
It's who you know. And that's what you try to preach to just anybody that'll listen. Young guys, never be short-sighted. Always think long-term. Always prioritize long-term dollars. Relationship capital is more important than real money. Relationship capital, if you understand compounding interest, that concept, Steph, Merle, if you understand compounding interest, nothing compounds better and faster than relationship capital. And we're big believers of that, and my whole life is a testament to it. And every different venture or field or thing that I endeavor that I undertook in my life, I always find a relationship from that I could have never expected that comes into play. And, I preach it and never prioritize money, always prioritize relationships.
So, we had a big signing that happened lately in college football, man. What do you think about Mike Vick and Norfolk State, man?
Oh, Mike, so I know Mike a little, and I know he has been itching to get into coaching. He had discussed it with me a couple of times. And Norfolk State, it's his hometown. He's from Newport News, which is right outside Norfolk, right in Norfolk. So it's a homecoming, so to speak. I know he is close with Coach Prime, so I know Coach Prime has been intricate in advising him and helping him out. And he's not just as a player one of the greatest. Culturally, he's an icon, right? And I think he's going to do great things down there. And whoever is down there is going to be lucky. He's going to put together a hell of a staff, from what I'm told. And whoever's down there is going to be fun for them, and it's going to be great. It's going to give them a lot more exposure. And at the HBCU level, I love it. I love to see that, and I love to see more exposure coming there. And it's kind of like piggying back off of what Coach Prime did, so to speak. He was at Jackson State, and now Mike Vick coming back to Norfolk State, proving that this can be done. And you hope to see more of it. And I'm hearing whispers of some pretty good talent, that Power 5, Power 4 talent that's going to be, playing in the green and yellow, so to speak, for the Spartans.
Yeah, I know Vince happy about it. He went to Norfolk State.
Vince, you're Norfolk State, man? Oh, my goodness.
Ties everywhere.
And you talk about, what we were talking about earlier with transfer and all this other stuff. So when I was leaving Bowling Green, make a long story short, my coach blocked me from transferring. I was about to transfer and go play with him at Norfolk.
Yeah.
Literally told me,
that was the world we lived in, Steph. Bro, you had to get permission get a release.
Get a release.
That's crazy.
You had to go to his office and talk to him.
So this how crazy it was. You 18, 19, 20, you don't know about contractual release, right? And I'm just thinking it's like, no, I'm transferring, I'm out. No, you not. You look, he just look me square in my face and you don't play for me, you ain't playing for nobody. Man. And then his coach called, cause I was talking to his coach. His coach was like, they won't release your transcripts. They won't release nothing. I'm like, they can do that? He's like, you
man.
It's a prison sentence, though.
It's hard to get. That's why it's hard to get mad at the kids when they say, "Well, I'm gonna weigh my options every portal window." When back when we were playing, it used to be, "Yeah, I got you, and I can cancel your scholarship anytime I want every year." But you are locked in for 4 years unless I let you go. That's essentially what it was. I don't want to say the word for that, but what is that?
Right.
I don't know what that is. That ain't right. So like, it ain't right.
I can say it.
So-
Slavery.
So whatever it is, hey, listen, it ain't right? So that's why when you see a lot of times, and I get it, it's tough to coach in these environments, to recruit in these environments, and I got a lot of friends in the coaching world, but it's the system that was in place. You can't blame it when the genie comes out of the bottle, and kids are gonna say, listen, for a lot of players for many years, they didn't have this opportunity. We have it. We've seen the way it works, and we're gonna do it a different way. I'm not saying, like I said, there's gonna be pros and cons to everything, and I do think that there needs to be some kind of like standards put in place, regulations in place to limit it a little bit. Again, in the NFL, I can't from year to year decide I want to leave and go play for the Ravens if I play for the Texans one year. After a year, I said I want to go over there. No, I got a contract, right? I got a so maybe it's and it's hard to put the contract and lock the kid in place and limit his mobility. So there's always it's like Pandora's box. Like you open it up, and if for every thing you fix, every problem you fix, another one pops up. It's like a leaky boat.
So, question real quick before we get out of here, on that, because the NCAA's power is dwindling. Like it's almost like the NCAA as an organization is
NCAA is going to be an event organizing company,
right?
Eventually.
So, what is going to be the governing power that says okay, we're going to have these certain contracts and all this other stuff to put these regulations in place?
So the NCAA and colleges, they're going after Congress to put something in place. Okay. Again, like with the high school NIL, my point too, with all the things going on in the world, in the country, is it a priority for lawmakers? For us in the sports world, it's number one priority, right?
Not a priority for them at all.
Not at all. So I don't see Congress wading their hand into this or wading into these waters, right? The power is going to come from essentially the conferences, right? The schools themselves, the presidents and ADs, the conferences, though, are going to govern themselves. Like you have your major conferences now, and I see the NCAA eventually as a governing body. They're toothless. No, it just is what it is. But what do? That's great. They throw on great events. March Madness is great.
Great party promoters.
Great party promoters, and they put on great events. So that's where you're going to see the NCAA more. It's like the NCAA putting on the conference tournaments or the national tournaments, the college football playoffs. That's where. But as far as a governing body, I don't see them lasting much longer. Yeah. The writing's on the wall.
Yeah, man. A lot of good information, man. A lot of good information, man. I was, sidebar real quick. As far as NIL goes, right? Because name, image, and likeness. Yesterday with Indiana versus Notre Dame, right? I saw something that was interesting to me at Notre Dame. They finally put those last names on the back of the jersey.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of this. I'm like, well, if it's name, image, and likeness, especially if I play football, basketball, you can see my face. Football, you can't got a helmet on, right?
You're going on the right spot.
How many years have we not known some of the more intricate players that just weren't superstars? They're first round talent at SC, Penn State, Notre Dame. You know what I mean? I'm like, if I'm a kid coming out of high school, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go there. You don't even have my name, and no one's gonna know me. How am I gonna market myself if you don't even know my name?
That's the ever changing landscape right now. You're exactly right. That's a big deal. Put the name on the jersey because football again.
That face mask.
Hey, why basketball players are so marketable, recognizable? First of all, there's not as many on a team. Right. There's not as many on the court. There's 5 guys on each team, right? And you see their faces, and right, football. Yeah, you're one of 11 on your team on the field, one of 22 at a time, right? You're covered up. You're facing unless you're the quarterback or the star offensive player. How many star defensive players do you not know their names, and you're like, this guy's he's a Hall of Famer,
right?
And he played in high school, and LeVar Arrington's playing at Penn State. His name ain't even on the back of the jersey.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
they say Notre Dame did that because of postseason play, but they got to get that together, man. So College, you got to come off that bag, but stop trying to hold the bag.
It's not either do it or get left behind.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You saw it with in our backyard.
Yeah.
Right? They did it. What I think the whole Bryce Underwood deal with Michigan, the best thing about that to me is they didn't let him get out the state.
Yeah.
You can't let
You can't.
Dante Moore already got out of the state. And
Yeah.
that was your other highly touted quarterback, and he's out of state. You don't want these talents.
Oh, we've been dogging Michigan for that on this
we
show
talked about it.
for like years now. Like it doesn't make any sense, especially when we had that run of quarterbacks. Like it was Dante, it was Carr. It was a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they all need to go to Michigan, but you didn't. Every time the first one came, you didn't get the best one. And we've been having quarterback problems. Me and him talked about this. I think the best quarterback that actually played at Michigan probably was Chad Henne.
Chad, yeah.
Like that's probably the best quarterback. And I was on the fence about Bryce going to Michigan just for being a quarterback because I haven't seen y'all develop a quarterback. Yep. Don't give me Tom Brady because you didn't develop Tom Brady. Yeah. Tom Brady had a dog about him and went to New England and won out. He had to fight everywhere he went, and that created the monster that is Tom Brady. It wasn't because y'all had some great quarterback guru coach that was putting together great schemes and they were throwing the ball over the place and developing the quarterback. I can't name you the last. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
they're unrecognizable. Guy number 5. You know what I mean? As far as Michigan goes with quarterbacks, and I'm like Bryce is too good to go somewhere and hand the ball off 40 times a game. I don't want to see that for his career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, they made that commitment to him. I hope they make the commitment to him on the field too, as far as developing and giving him weapons. And
I mean, he's a special talent, you know,
Yeah.
and I think you got to let him go.
yeah,
You know, but that's just my opinion. I'm not coaching, so I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
you know that. What do I know? But I'm a man that I know if you invest heavily into someone or something or whatever, you get your bang for your buck.
oh yeah, yeah.
Players and parents, y'all families, man, make sure y'all holler at Jordan, man. Definitely got the game for you. Sound like a family man to me, you know, on and off the field for you, on and off the court, man. So, hey, man, much props to you for what you're doing for the community, man. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys having me, man. Thank you.
So appreciate it, man. And this has been the Player Exchange, and we all will see you again next time. Thanks a lot for rocking with us.